welcome to Vibrant Life, episode 27. Today is November 7th, 2021. I'm Jessica Parker. I'm a holistic health coach with a master's in health psychology, and I'm a fitness instructor. So today we are going to speak about a very, I would say, sensitive topic. My friend Laurie Olmstead allowed me to interview her, which I'm extremely thankful that she is being vulnerable and letting us into this world that she's been experiencing. So we will be speaking in quote code during this interview, just to hopefully not have this video removed, but it might happen anyway. So sauce is the word we use for the thing that goes in your arm, having to do with the current illness that we are all experiencing. So Laurie got the sauce and she had some reactions that have been extremely difficult to deal with. And she's going on, I want to say day 85 or so. She will explain that. It was really important to me to bring somebody on who is personally experiencing these things. I do find it a little, well, there are a lot of words for it, but definitely frustrating and confusing and maddening that people are experiencing these things and are not really allowed to talk about it. And yes, I will say allowed, because the powers that be are blocking that information as much as possible. So take a listen. Laurie was very, very gracious to say that if anybody is wanting to reach out and, whether it's just, oh my gosh, somebody understands me, somebody gets it, somebody's going through this also, or if you're having similar symptoms and you're wondering, how she's dealt with it or whatnot, then you are welcome to reach out to her. That's something that you'll hear her say in this video. So I will link information below to how you can get in touch with her. And you can always message me and I can link you guys up. So again, Laurie Olmstead, and here we go. Hey, and just a quick heads up, we did have some glitches with our Zoom to where we would freeze here and there. So you might notice these little interruptions, but I did my best to edit out the times when we were just frozen. So please ignore that and enjoy the interview. Okay, so today we are going to chat with my friend Laurie, my new friend Laurie. My dear friend Tara up in Alaska. I met her a lot of years ago. We won't talk about how many years ago. And Laurie is Tara's cousin. So Tara reached out to me after Laurie got sauced, that is our code word, in the arm for preventative, if y'all can catch what I'm saying here, and then had some issues. So Tara reached out to me. Laurie's in Colorado, and Tara was wondering about any connections I might have with holistic doctors in that area. Anyway, so that's how Laurie and I got connected. And we definitely have a lot in common. And I really just wanted to share her story, because I really believe a lot of this kind of stuff is happening and people aren't really necessarily quote allowed to talk about it. It's very hush hush. That's just from my perspective, and I'd love to hear your perspective, Laurie. But let's go ahead and dive in and just chat about what life was like pre-sauce, your health, your fitness, all the things, work, all that.
Gotcha. That's a great question. Learned a lot, and I've used this as more of a growing period. This is what you're going to grow through this. You're not just going to go through this, because it was really difficult, and it would have been easy to kind of succumb to the negative and the discouragement and the feelings of hey, it feels like sometimes nobody cares, meaning medically speaking. But pre-sauce, so leading up to that, I cannot speak about that without mentioning kind of what I had gone through in the previous years leading up to that, at least a short period of years we're going to kind of go over here, because I had gone through a very stressful, transformative period of my life where I had separated from a relationship that had been abusive for 3 years previously. Very, very stressful. Didn't really let anyone know what I was going through. And then literally just dropped everything like had to leave years. I still owned those horses, but I had no place to keep them. So there I was setting off on my own. I had 2 part-time jobs. I did not have a full-time job with benefits and that sort of thing to kind of fall back on. So I needed to kind of reinvent myself. And in that process, speaking of my health sauce, I have to remember to use that word. I had to reinvent myself, and I ended up being greatly benefited by that change of circumstances in many ways personally, because I had kind of lost myself. And in that process, I had lost my health. I don't want to go into all of that. That's not what this subject we're talking about today is about. I could, but I'm not going to. But as far as health was concerned, aside from mental and emotional health, I had some stress-related things go on from my health during that time. So then I left in November 2019. I had those 2 jobs. I was working out and ended up losing over time, healthily, just by very healthy eating choices, educating myself and staying consistent, losing 20 pounds. I ended up keeping that off. And then I started kind of getting even more and more into it. And I was just like, this feels really good. I'm losing the pain in any pain I may have had in joints or swelling. Or to show you guys, like I got this really cool journal. Isn't it just pretty? Right. And I was like, this is going to be your journal. You're going to put, it's not for writing per se, but it's for just like, hey, this is the date. This is, what you weighed, even though I know that's not what that's about, but it was a way for me to keep track. And that wasn't my focus. My focus was more on what I was achieving and how I was feeling. But I would put in this journal and I would put in daily, what I was doing, whether it was a rest day or I had done a specific workout. I kept track of my workouts in here. I was doing super good. I was doing all this, resistance training and ended up doing walking and jogging during my process. I got a job at the Colorado Springs Police Department as a dispatcher. I went through this very stressful training, right? Takes about, I think it's 6 weeks. And then you go into on-the-job training in medical and police. So I've had all these things going on since 2019. I get my health back. I'm doing really good. I have this great job that I really love, even though it's very stressful. Okay. And there's a point to me telling you about these stressful occurrences. They actually tie in interestingly to kind of what's gone on here. So I decide I'm doing really well. I'm super healthy, yada, 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 feeling great. I don't have any aches and pains. I don't have anything going on. I haven't seen the doctor for anything since my pre-Colorado Springs Police Department job, where I did a pre-physical to make sure I was clear for that position, because it's very stressful. So I haven't seen the doctor. I'm doing good, other than for little things like sinus infection or, stuff like that, little stuff that may pop up, or you have allergies or, things like that. I had a couple COVID tests done because I did get sick, and I thought, hey, maybe I should let people know, and my workplace is very stringent because you can't have a small area getting sick. So they're very, very careful. So there was a few times I had to take leave just in case I got the test. It was always negative. Okay. So then I decided, well, maybe I will get the sauce. I'm sorry, I messed up earlier with that. My daughter is a paramedic and was talking about, her experiences. And she was like, well, you'll probably be okay. So I did a lot of research on it. And I finally decided, and sometimes I wonder why, that I would get the sauce. And I thought it'll be okay. I'll, might be a little bit of time off work. Like some of the people I had known, I had waited pretty late to get it, considering the pressures on our society. And I just really didn't want to. I felt like I didn't really think I was at risk. And I went ahead and got the sauce. 5 hours later, I started having a reaction. And it wasn't necessarily just soreness in my arm. That was never a big deal. I've heard of that with other people. Oh, it was really, no, mine wasn't like that. It was, to me, felt like a normal shot. Okay. So speaking of the sauce, I'm not an anti-sauce person. I had all those things growing up. My children had all those things. I was just really concerned by what I perceived as a lack of thorough research and production on the sauce. And I was really worried about some of the things I heard through actual human beings, not just through media sources and things like that. I kind of put a high value into what I actually experienced from people I knew and people that I would hear stories from. So I was like, I don't know, maybe I should wait. So I did. I finally got the shot on August 16th, the sauce. And I, 5 hours later, gosh, it just kind of comes flying out. It's just conversational. Got the sauce on August 16th. And 5 hours later, I had started to feel very, very poorly. I started to have like a headache and this and that. By 11 p.m. that night, I was having severe, what we would call in the dispatching world, some priority symptoms: chest pain, palpitations, shortness of breath, faintness. I was dizzy. I couldn't think. When I woke up on, I think it was the 19th in the morning, and I have it written down because of my journal. I think it was about 7:30. I woke up and I remembered the time, and I notated the time in my journal because it was so shocking to my system that I was able to take a breath. I had just gone through this period of where I thought, gosh, I'm just having an extreme immune response. It will stop. I didn't feel, even though I was feeling all these symptoms, and I felt like, these are all the symptoms of a heart attack. And I already knew that from my training. And I was like, but I dug my heels in, and I just thought, this should be fine. But yeah, I was having all those really horrible issues. But despite the fact I was having those symptoms, I still didn't call 911. I finally did go to the urgent care on the 19th. And that began this long journey of what is this day again, day 83 of having all of these reactions and all of these symptoms. And it's been a great mystery. I've been largely a puzzle to myself and to the doctors. I ended up doing an overview even for the doctors because I now have a cardiologist. I have an endocrinologist, things I didn't have before. I have never had any of these symptoms before. I've never had chest pain, palpitations. I've never had shortness of breath. I've never had brain fog. I've never had tremors. I have really bad tremors still that attack me here and there. And I don't really feel like myself. And how you as a person, you get used to being in your own body. I mean, I know that's just stating the obvious, but you are like, this is me, and this is how I feel. And you tend to, after a while, if you have any kind of mindfulness practice or meditation or anything, you're going to feel when something's off, and right now I just still feel like everything is just really, really off. I wish I'd gone with that instinct and went, yeah, I'm just going to, leave for now and give it a little longer, that kind of thing. So I don't know if you have any further questions, or if you'd like to go into, you want me to just read my list of symptoms here. It is a long list. It covers 1 page.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask you if you have any like tingling sensations, like that's something that I've heard, but so yeah, please go for it.
Okay, absolutely. On August 16, I got the sauce. It was the one that starts with the letter P. I got it at 7:25. Sorry. I got it on the 16th. Okay. And then on August 19th, 7:25 a.m., I took the first breath without extreme effort and gasping. I had continuous chest pain from August 17 on, even noted in my journal, through August 27. So this is kind of, again, this is a synopsis. That's 10 days with no break. Okay. None. And that was very difficult. Okay. So I had these ongoing attacks of palpitations, faint lightheadedness, and confusion, along with that chest pain with no break. The chest pain was worse when I was laying flat or trying to rest or sleep. I couldn't find a recognizable trigger or pattern. I couldn't reproduce the pain by pushing on my chest, even though that was always my instinct, was to try and push it and cause it to go away. And it didn't happen, of course. I would have a stabbing pain when trying to take a deep breath. I would have a squeezing feeling in my chest along with the pressure. And I would have heart palpitations, worse when I was laying flat. My heart would feel like it was beating super slow, but shaking my whole body like it would beat out of my chest. My heart rate monitor was showing like a weirdly irregular heartbeat that would go faster and then slower, and then faster and then slower. And then that would just kind of accompany a weird feeling in my ears and in my chest. That was a kind of a surprise to me, when it was feeling like I'd feel it in my ears, sometimes even down the side of my neck. And you were asking about tingling and numbness. I did have tingling and numbness in my arms, the base of my neck, and it spread down my left arm. And I would have that shortness of breath and gasping for air for 2.5 days. It felt like I was running when I was laying down trying to sleep. And I was used to jogging. I was used to working out. I would work out for 2 or 2.5 hours hard. I would do circuits. I would do weights. I was doing bodybuilding. And so I was like, and then I would do the whole like short bursts of activity, and so I really like working out hard. And it was strange to me that this would happen while I was laying down the most. And I would feel like I would just like, I can't just breathe normally. I have to like work to breathe. I feel like I'm running. I would have the tremors, which still occur. And then sometimes they would be throughout my entire body. They would usually start in my hands. They would often go into my whole body. That actually happened to me in the ER when I was speaking to the doctor. My whole body started shaking, including my stomach, my legs, it's everything. And then I couldn't tell him why I was there, even though I had just spent, that's the only time I've ever called 911 in my life, by the way. I called 911 for an ambulance. My parents had come to visit me because I had spent like the first 4 or 5 days alone. They knew I was alone and all this important and serious symptoms I was having. So they were kind enough to come up and keep me company and watch over me because I could really not get up and go get water or get some food and things like that without feeling like I was going to faint. So it was really nice to have them there, even though I felt really bad because they weren't exactly having fun because I was just sitting there. And then I was sweating, which I'll get into as well. And I was unable to talk clearly. I would forget what I was talking about or what they were saying or what I was saying or not be able to find words. And that's not like me. I'm actually really verbose. I have like a really big vocabulary. It was too tiring to talk or breathe at the same time. And the talking was causing coughing fits and gasping. There was a short period of time where I developed a small cough. This was not a very productive cough. It started out as just a little dry thing that would happen once every couple hours, and then it got a little bit worse. And then it got slightly productive. And so my doctor, I did see the doctor that many times. I started writing down the list if you'd like to have that. And they said, just take some cough medicine. Literally the only time that the doctors were able to give me any answers actually for a very, very long period of time was just, hey, take some cough medicine. I was like, okay. I took that for a couple of days. It really didn't do anything. And I almost fainted at one point. That was on the 19th that happened. So 3 days after the shot, I was still having those kinds of symptoms, just kind of an FYI. I was having an extreme sweating. I had sweat dripping down my leg for 2 days. Like if I was just sitting on a couch, it was gross. I would put towels under me and my body was just sweating. It felt like I was in a sauna. If you've been in one of them, then you just have that sweat just dripping down your legs. You can feel it dripping. It would drip onto the floor. I put towels under my feet. I put towels all over the couch. It was disgusting. I'm very fastidious. And I was just like, wow. And it was really unpleasant, And meantime, you're sweating and you're thinking in your mind, I've got to drink more water, but with no temperature. My normal temperature is between 97.5 and 97.8. Temperature was only 99.5 or 99.8. for the first 2 days. Then temperature went away. I still would have the feeling of being hot and cold, but I never had that fever other than that real mild one. I was unable to sleep for longer than 2 or 3 hours, despite being super exhausted and not feeling rested and just feeling just super, super tired and sleepy all the time, like somebody with an autoimmune disorder could understand. I did have sudden attacks of the following, which was commonly in the evening, but could happen anytime throughout the day, but it was consistently happening to me at night in the evening. I'd be just sitting there and my mom and dad would be trying to talk to me and this is what would happen. So I would have tremors, heart palpitations and chest pain that would suddenly happen, like a stabbing pain. I would get confused, get lightheaded and dizzy, suddenly sleepy. I might just kind of sit there and just kind of just like feel just like out of it. Then about a week, I think it was the week after, because I went to the doctor a couple times to my primary care provider, including the urgent care in their office. And then I went back to see two providers. So it was really 3 visits the first week. Just some, urgent care. They did like chest, they did an EKG, wanted to make sure that I was okay. Told me to take cold medicine if I, because this was the 19th that I went to see them. So as I said, on like that couple of days, I had started to develop a tiny little cough. And then that's it. I didn't have any guidance, anything like that. They were like, well, we want to do a CAT scan of your chest. But I just went home, my first primary care. They were putting test orders in they were putting in under stat or urgent. And the doctors were forgetting to put those orders in. So I was at the other end waiting for these facilities that were going to do the tests to call me and schedule, and having to call, even though I had brain fog and all these things going on, right? I was having to follow up and call and then find out we don't have an order from them, and then call back to my doctor and they'd say, that doctor didn't put it in. And so when I said about feeling not important or like nobody cared about I felt like along those lines of, my logical brain knows they care. This is why they're in the profession of medical, they want to help people, but they just weren't doing it. About 3 weeks of that, I chose a new primary care provider. So yeah. So continuing, I'm almost done. That second week, I went back to that primary care. And this was still the same one that was the Three Stooges at this point. And they found this giant nodule right here in my neck, which I still have. There's a really big nodule in the front of my neck right here. It's actually about, when you look at the circumference of it and you feel it with your fingers, it feels like there's a golf ball under my skin. This is very upsetting and disturbing to me because I pay attention to my own body. Like I said, I'm actually a very, very healthy person, but very health conscious, but I hadn't been feeling well. So I hadn't exactly been real aware in that first week. And then I went to there and she was checking and she goes, oh my goodness. And here it was. And I went and I reached up and I was just like, oh, I was disgusted. I was like, just one, there's one next to it as well. So she was like, oh, I think you have acute thyroiditis. It's probably just a response to getting the sauce. By the way, just to go over this, I had seen all those doctors. They all wrote into my chart, and as well as verbally acknowledged that it was just an extreme autoimmune response of my body to the sauce, specific to me. Yeah. So that is actually, it's documented. It's right in there, and I was concerned about that, because of the way you hear on the news and, I was just like, my parents were like, maybe you shouldn't tell them, but I was like, but that's important information. The guy in urgent care was like, well, my brother had a really bad reaction, as bad as yours. And I would run into that story everywhere I went. So they would say they weren't surprised. That is notable.
Yes.
And when I say they weren't surprised, I'm saying that you'd be looking in the eyes of the nurse and she'd be like, oh yeah, seen this before, but they would all say, this is worse. And this is acting this is much longer and more profound, if you will, medically, like the extremity of it. It was just a very extreme response to what they were seeing. They did see those things, but definitely maybe not in this area of being this bad. So then became the huge nodule. I also had pressure on my neck and inner ears when I would turn my head to the right, probably because, and this is just my theory, nobody told me this, but the nodule is really big. And I feel like when I turn my head, that it presses on some things in my neck. I was either sleeping like the dead, like a zombie, or I was just like wishing I could sleep like a zombie. It was just like, it was just all over the place as far as that went. I also, because I'm me and I love exercising, and I was really missing it, even though I was just like, I can't even like stand up and balance, because my balance was off. I was dizzy. I was having these palpitations. But after I'd gone to the doctor a few times, this is, we're going forward a few weeks now, I decided, well, I'll try to do one of my workouts, just like super laid back. Went ahead and I worked out the 2 times, and I just took note of it. I was definitely not able to do normal, but I did it just to see how it would make me feel. I noticed, interestingly, that I wasn't sweating during the exercise. I normally would have been, and I didn't. And then when I got done and I sat down to rest, I was suddenly sweating buckets. So I thought that was an odd reaction. So I put that down. I also had this really weird, these are what I would call the little effects that I started noticing. I had like a really super dry skin issue on my lower legs, like scales starting to develop. And that was me putting like lotion on every day. And I felt like, do I need to put like socks on my legs and put Vaseline under it? Like, what is this? I also noticed some weird stuff about my hair, and the was breaking off. And it was just from me laying on my pillow. And I already used like a silk pillow to try and keep my hair from breaking, and it didn't matter. It was just all totally breaking. I was actually doing much better now in the last couple of weeks, but I ended up having to have my hair cut. And I was just cut it off because I had all these little pieces all over the place. So that was going on. It should be noted, I also had a sudden weight gain, and it just started to just explode in that first 4 weeks. I gained 20 pounds in those 4 weeks. Now, even though I wasn't working out, I was still eating healthy. In fact, I was eating less calories because I didn't feel well. So I was having a problem hitting what I do, the whole macro thing for carbs, proteins, fats. I was doing bodybuilding. So now I have a problem eating that much. Now I've plateaued. The 4 weeks went boom, boom, boom. And I was like, oh, I can't believe it. I'm back at that 20 pounds heavier than, like, what? It's like, insult to injury. I know, but then, there are some serious things like, if I had my joints were starting to hurt. My joints were swelling. My body was really puffy. And those were some other things here. I felt puffy, especially my arms and my face and neck. And here's this really interesting one too. And I ended up telling it to a nurse in cardiology when I was in there, and they were giving me an echo, and then they put a heart monitor on me, which I wore for 8 days. Still waiting on the results on that. My breasts got really sensitive, like uncomfortably so. I had a couple children. They're all in their 20s now. But it almost felt like when you're pregnant and you're so sensitive, like you don't want like your shirt to touch them. It aggravates them. It irritates them. That was very odd, because I'm 49. I was like, this shouldn't be happening. Why is this happening? So I told her about it, and she said that she did have someone who had that side effect from the actual sauce. I was also having a little bit of the nausea, and I was having new joint pains and body aches I'd never felt before. And then just obviously, eventually, after all of this, I started feeling some discouragement and feelings of depression. So one of the things that we were having a little internet thing. I was saying is that my symptoms started at a really huge, level as far as all of these acute symptoms, priority symptoms. And just over time, over this 80 days, 83, it is just slowly decrescendoed. I did not receive any medical care other than it was on October 5th. So August, I didn't work in September. And then October finally comes around. On the 5th, I finally saw an endocrinologist, and she gave me a low dose of some thyroid medication. Okay, 25 milligrams. So started me out really small. And other than that, I had no, if you will, help, unless you call help, lots of poking and prodding and testing. Okay, I had all sorts of tests. So I've gone that whole long period of time. On the October 5th, I finally got the low dose of the thyroid medication. During that time, I spent a huge amount of it doing my own research. I have felt like there's just less was just by treating my body as a whole organism and just doing my own research and studying about different supplements, because I've added a whole giant list of supplements to what I'm taking every day. And so I used to just take like a basic supplement kind of thing, and I take a couple things. Now it's just like I have bottles all over my refrigerator that I take in the AM, and then I do something in the middle of the day, and then I do something at night. So we were talking about tea earlier. Like, for example, I get up and I have bone broth. I have the grass-fed bone broth. I add a scoop of collagen to it, and I put a mushroom tea in there.
So good. Wow.
So that's what I have in the morning, because I've usually had my thyroid medication, and then I take that bone broth and that collagen, and I use like a reishi mushroom tea, and have another mushroom tea later in the day. I have this whole thing planned out, like what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do it. I've did all the research on, when you take this supplement, should you take this one at the same time, or should you, like there's some I have to take like 4 hours apart, like just to be careful. Now that's not to say that I'm always perfect. Go ahead.
Balance. So you have mentioned Hashimoto's. So did they actually test your antibodies for Hashimoto's?
Yes.
Is that diagnosed? Okay. And
yeah, thank you for helping me clarify too. They did a lot of tests, a thyroid ultrasound test. Then when I went to my endocrinologist on the 5th, they did another like whole set of thyroid tests. The only thing that had come out through all of it, I know, by the way, like I said, I now had a cardiologist and he went over everything, and he's the one who ordered the heart MRI, and he's the one who ordered the echo. And then he's the one who ordered the heart monitor. And he just wanted to be absolutely sure they weren't being caused by my heart. So at this point, the only thing left to get the results back on for my heart is the heart monitor results, which are not back yet. But the other results show minor little issues that the doctor's like, they couldn't be causing your issues, your palpitations, your chest pain. None of that could be coming from this. So it's not that. So it's as he and all the other doctors had thought, including my primary care, my endocrinologist. They all think that these symptoms are from the Hashimoto's. Of all my thyroid tests, that is the one that came back super high. Depending on which doctor you talk to, it's supposed to be between 0 and 30. And it was at like 267 or 287. I don't remember which one. So super high. It was very definitely Hashimoto's. And it presents like Hashimoto's if you do some research on that. Now, Hashimoto's is triggered by various things in your life, which is why this ties back to the beginning of what I was saying about my life pre-sauce. I had a very stressful existence. The abusive situation I was in was extremely, extremely stressful. It caused things to go on medically speaking during that time that the doctors were flummoxed. Like, why did that happen? And those things just magically disappeared when I left the stressful situation. Then I went on, I worked for a while, COVID came around, that kind of thing. So it's a very high level stress, yet none of these instances in my life had ever triggered Hashimoto's. So one could say, there's a big question. Why did getting the sauce trigger Hashimoto's? It's an autoimmune disease. It's not a thyroid condition. It's an autoimmune disease that can cause lupus, encephalitis, all these sorts of things. I can have rheumatoid arthritis. Matter of fact, I have to go in for tests next Tuesday. My endocrinologist wants me to have those be tested for those things as well. Because Hashimoto's can turn into those things. And it can be triggered by stressful situations, by having a virus, by having a bacterial infection. There's all sorts of research out there on people trying to figure out what causes Hashimoto's, how to handle it. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a mystery. Lucky me.
Yeah.
So I definitely have the Hashimoto's. I did test for Graves' disease, which I was really hoping I didn't have both, because I had done some research and I had symptoms from both. And so I knew I might have it, and they came to the same conclusion. It seems like every time I go to the doctor, they're just reaffirming what I already have researched and know. Because I do, like I said, I do a lot of reading and research, and I feel like I need to, in my own way, take care of myself as best as I can while asking them to help me as well.
Right. You and I talked about this a little bit before, but I can totally relate to your going down the autoimmune road. And I definitely feel like with my research, I tell doctors, okay, I want to look into this piece of it or that piece of it, because your body, you're doing the research. They don't know your body. And oftentimes I feel like there's kind of a disconnect. And well, you mentioned it a little bit before, but we want to know why and fix it from the root cause, and there isn't that perspective from regular mainstream. Anyway, so you're speaking my language.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely.
And there are times where I'm like, why am I here? I know what's going on more than you do, but you know what I mean? Because again, you spend hours and hours and hours trying to figure it out. So
absolutely. Yeah. And it's a really long and conglomerated story. That's why I was like, gosh, you want me to show you read portions of my journal? if you can, if you're interested, I can, or go over my tests I've had. I mean, it's just really, it's a lot. It is a lot. And that's really what it comes down to. And, I remember at one point, this in the middle of all my journey, this path I was going down, this thing in Afghanistan happened. If Afghanistan happened, sorry.
Oh gosh.
And then the people being left there and et cetera. And I just remember, I noticed in my journal, I actually wrote about it, that I was just like, I know this is happening to me, but there are worse things happening all over the world. And the people in Afghanistan right now who are just like, and so it's all about perspective. And, even if I don't come back, or if I don't come back for another talk, I would like to make sure that anyone hearing this knows that, these things happen, and like, I didn't have any control, and now I don't have control over certain aspects of my body and what it does. But I do always have control in the way that I respond to the things I can't control. So I am not allowing this occurrence, or this, I don't know, I guess you could say, these cards I've been dealt to determine the way that I approach my daily life. I still have a lot of joy, and I have a lot of blessings, and I have a lot of things to be thankful for. And those are the things I focus on. I will focus on what I can do and not what I can't do, and then that's going to grow. And I know it is, so I'm going through like learning how to make my own podcast, and I'm trying to grow my, my intellect, I guess, in that way, learn something new, keep my brain busy. So I have brain fog. So should I just sit around, or should I try to keep my brain busy? In order to recover, I'm keeping my brain busy. I'm trying to grow, and the same thing applies to all of the research, like, it's a little bit at a time, and it's a lot to try and figure out when you're a puzzle. And I know you know that. So it's like, just bite size, today I'm going to learn about magnesium and Hashimoto's. Tomorrow, I'm going to watch a movie.
Yeah. Did anybody, or have you reported this to, I don't know if I can say it, but VAERS, or have the doctor said anything about it?
Interesting. Yeah. I have them saved on my laptop, because I was trying to wait until I had like the end of the story.
Right.
To say, this is what happened, not just here's the chapter.
Right.
So I was actually waiting till all those tests came back, and they have taken this long. I was amazed by how long it went, with urgent tests having nothing done. I'd be like, I could be having a heart attack, but nobody would know.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to be reporting this to VAERS, however you say. I was a little disheartened, because when you look at the VAERS paperwork, you can see how it's kind of really angled for the doctors to be reporting it. And not one of my doctors has mentioned it. So if they're reporting it, I don't know about it. They haven't mentioned it, but I'm going to report it myself, because I think people should know. And of course, I have been sharing my story, even though I'm actually an introvert and a private person. And I would rather focus on the positive. I would rather be like, this is all the good stuff we can focus on, but I think people should be able to look around and see that someone they know is actually going through this.
Yeah.
Just so they can make their own educated decision.
Yes.
Like, this could happen. I know it's not likely, I don't know the likelihood. I don't know the statistics. And I feel like even some of the doctors I went to speak with, you could tension or the resistance in their mind, like, it's got to be something else.
Oh.
And you're like, no, this is actually real. Like, you're actually talking to someone that had that cause this,
Right.
And, so the only, actually, to be honest, I shouldn't say doctors. It was really just one doctor that felt that way. And that was the heart doctor at the ER when I went and took an ambulance to the ER. He kind of seemed like, like, but he still wrote in there this, it's a sauce reaction, because there was really no other, there's really just nothing else.
Yeah. It's just really an interesting situation in which like it's been recognized that yes, this we say this is why and it's in your charts, and yet like, well, it is actually kind of shocking because everything I've heard out there is like, no, just a coincidence, you know. But then it seems like they likely it was not reported to bears.
Right. Yes, exactly. And I feel that is the case. I would love to show you. It's right there. Because there may be, you never know, somebody listening or watching here. You can honestly, you can DM me, anyone listening or watching, if you would like to see it for your own eyes. I happen to be that kind of person. I'm just straight up the chute, as my dad would say. So yeah, I'll put money where my mouth is, and you can actually see my results. And yes, it's a private thing, but I don't really care because, you know, there's a lot of people who aren't getting, people who are straight up the chute, you know, like I feel like that's hard to find. Oh yeah, it would take a while, but it's all in there. I was thinking I could just do a really quick one, but it's too much. And I have a whole file of paperwork and test results.
Really good. Like, I appreciate that. Like, if anybody is, you know, curious about, you know, certain parts of your journey, maybe they're really relating and don't really know what to do or feel alone. Because you've mentioned the isolation a little bit, feeling like some depression coming on and stuff at one point when you're like trying to figure all this out. I just think it's so important to have somebody to connect with who gets it and who's listening to you, you know, even if it's just like, well, I can just say, absolutely, I understand, you know, like you legit know how it feels.
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be something I would be very happy to do. And I'm not a doctor, but I could tell you, hey, this is what I tried, or hey, this is the supplement I was taking, or what I tried to do just to help myself during that process or whatever. And I'm still at the decrescendo end right now, I still have palpitations occasionally. I still have heart or chest pain at least once a day. And I still have the tremors. You know, occasionally I feel like I'm a little slow, as far as I'll feel like a little bit of a brain fog, but not as much, which is why I am going back to work on Monday. I do feel like I will probably be okay, but I do expect that I will have some chest pain and tremors that will be a little bit distracting probably occasionally, and I'm hoping not, but I don't know until I try.
Right.
So I will be going on Monday to try that and go back. But yeah, I still am having those. I still have the smaller or peripheral things like hair and skin and weird rash that pops up on my face occasionally when I haven't had anything like that since I was 20. You know, like you just be like, what? Why is there a breakout on my face all of a sudden? That's weird. So just little stuff like that still goes on. And I know it's just going to be an ongoing journey. So, yeah. But I also believe that, you know, that I may have to deal or work in a kind of a preventative mental place for the Hashimoto's forever, but I don't believe that I will have to suffer from it forever. You know, I don't think that way. Yes. I kind of tend to think, you know, yeah, I can deal with this, you know, it'll be okay. Even though it didn't always feel okay. Sometimes I was terrified. I would be laying there and just, I would cry. I would just lay there crying. So yeah, if you're out there and you're in a place where, you know, this is COVID, you know, your friends aren't coming over, you're sick, you're by yourself, maybe your mom and dad can't drive up and stay with you, you know, you know, and you're just like, wow, I feel like I'm alone. DM me. Because I won't judge you.
Yes. And this is why, you know, you said something earlier about being more introverted and yet you're sharing your story. And I think it's so important. And I feel like that's part of our own healing journeys as well, you know, because people can't see what's going on with you. And yet your entire internal life has changed, which I was also going to ask you, how's your energy and the exercise piece and all that at this point?
Determination that I have done it before and I will do it again. Meaning I have overcome like extreme challenges in the past and overcome and gone into that place, that consistent, determined, yet self-loving place, you know, to heal my body and to get back to that. and to just have it be about me and not a competition against anyone else, but just how am I doing? How do I feel? How is my body doing? Did my body do better today than last week? So like that's where I'm at right now. Like eventually I'm hoping to get back to that, but I'm honestly just right now going first things first. Let's see if I can handle a shift at work, and then we'll go from there. Kind of like, okay, let's see how that goes.
Yeah. Well, I think that is all I have for you. I think we really touched on all the questions, but I'm excited to see people's response, and if, maybe we can chat again. And I would love to hear what happens when you get your results from your heart monitor and all the things. So thank you.
At least you're welcome. Thank you so much. This is my first time, really being on a podcast and, going through a podcast course. I eventually want to have my own. So I appreciate you, Sensei, being my example. And I appreciate the way that you are obviously very all about treating the whole organism and having that holistic aspect. And you're very so generous and giving to people. So I appreciate that. I think it was a very appropriate exchange of energies.
Amen. Awesome. All right, you guys. So that's it. Thank you for hanging out with us. And again, like I said in the intro, if you would like to connect with Laurie, I'll have information below, or you can talk to me and I can connect you with her. I really appreciate her sharing her personal journey. I think it's very, very important that people have some kind of platforms to be able to share this information and connect with others who are going through or have gone through something similar. You can find me as usual at thatvibrantlife.com. On Facebook, I'm at Vibrant Life, and then on Instagram, that_Vibrant Life. And then this podcast is sponsored by my family-owned and operated pasture-raised meat business, Oregon Valley Farm. And we do ship to several different states. So if you're interested, it's beef, chicken, and pork. If you're interested, go to the FAQs and make sure that we actually ship to your state. And we also offer local pickup. So thank you again for hanging out with me, really regarding this important topic. All right, have a good day.